And thank you for tuning in, Smash Team, to the Smash Stream. We're going to talk filaments, we're going to talk Blazars, death toll rising due to flooding, and more. Now we're looking at 171 angstroms right now. This is only the last 9 hours of solar activity, as we do custom views most mornings on this show. We do see a little bit of filamentary activity happen up here in the northeast, right there underneath my pointer. Looks like a filament is set up to release. Let's look at it in 304 angstroms. And keep this thing moving, as there's a lot of stuff to cover. Looks like that filament is probably going to release, although it might collapse back onto the sun. Something to watch over the next few hours. Again, that's only 9 hours of activity, folks. We see 0 sunspots. We don't see any coronal holes right now. And we'll show you the view from 193 angstroms also. I would note that the North Pole coronal hole is looking huge again, and the South Pole is looking a little bit less so. Let's move on to real-time solar wind, which has recently ramped up a little bit. We see the solar wind density has increased to 6.79 protons per cubic centimeter. Phi angle and BTBZ are both all over the place. That's the top 2 panes for you new viewers out there. And solar wind speed looks like it's just ramping up from around 400. So there would be no surprise here if we saw the density drop down at the same time that the speed comes up, an indication of a solar coronal hole wind stream. And the ACE data looks like it's pretty similar. So expect an uptick in the solar wind speed throughout the day and a downtick in the density, as that's what a coronal hole does. Now let's talk cosmology for a second real quick at the beginning. Let's talk about Blazar 3C454.3, the most luminous astronomical object ever observed. Why are we talking about that? Because, well, there are going to be some cosmology articles coming out, and we want our viewers to understand the depth and breadth of the new information. And so we're looking at Blazars 3C454.3 for a distinct reason. Now, if you want to look this up in the transients, you can look this up in transients, and we will leave a link to the Neil Gorell's page. Here are the transients coming out of that Blazar. We're going to explain in a perfunctory fashion what a Blazar is just in a moment. And we will leave links to this, the Swift BAT hard X-ray monitor. Type in find and there's 3C405.0, that's Cygnus A. 3C454.3, there we go. 3C454. And there's that Blazar. And we're going to go to cosmology for one quick moment. So here's that Blazar. I copied this onto a whiteboard for our viewers here. And it is located kind of south of the Cygnus arm, which is located right about here. I just want to draw something in real quick. So Sagittarius A star is down here in the center, obviously, right about there. Here's the Vela pulsar. As you can see, the Cygnus arm is located right here. That's the Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And that's where most of the energy hitting the planet comes from, not the galactic core. Why does that matter? Well, it's kind of important. Let me explain why. It's important because there are theories about the galactic wave, in that as the sun rotates around the Milky Way, that there is a plane, a B-field plane, just like the one surrounding the sun, kind of shaped like this. And the theory of a lot of cosmologists is that as the sun wobbles up and down over this galactic plane, that's what causes Earth's magnetic reversal cycle. I believe that is incorrect. And I'm going to explain why briefly. And the reason is because of Z fields. Now, when you're looking at a blazar, what that means is that you are looking right down the Z field of this object. So, for instance, the sun, the Earth has Z fields. Z fields come out of the poles of these objects in a spiral shape. Keep in mind, the sun has a coronal hole at both ends all the time. So here is a drawing of the Z fields of the sun. And of course the B fields of the sun are like this. They're right on this plane. They tend to stay in this area. And they extend out through the interplanetary. They are the interplanetary magnetic field. Also keep in mind that there is current going to be flowing both this way and this way at the same time through all of these fields. Because in order to have a Birkeland current, you have to have a co-rotating region. It all has to kind of do the same thing. Now, what's the significance of a blazar? Well, the significance of a blazar is that it's a type of quasar, otherwise known as an active galactic nucleus. And so, in other words, you would be looking right down the pole of this object. And that is what makes it so significant. That's what makes it appear so bright, looking down the Z field. And without giving away the entire paper that we'll be writing later this year, these coronal holes, for instance, on the sun, they are constantly spewing protons straight out of the poles like this. There's a coronal hole wind stream coming out of both of these poles constantly. This is why it's significant when we see a coronal hole facing the Earth, and we note the effects of it, as it has kind of important effects on things like cosmology. When we continue to draw on this whiteboard, we will put links to this into the description so that folks can come and graffiti up our whiteboard if they like and get involved with talking about the real cosmology in our universe. Now, I have a feeling a lot of people are aware of how this works. One other thing I'd like to note is that this is probably the most important region of our galaxy. I guess that'll keep people in suspense. We're going to skip cosmic rays. We're going to note the locations of the planets, that's where they are. Also the moon. Makemake, Haumea, Haumea. And there's where things will be in 1 week. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for leaving comments. For that, we thank you. Let's look at magnetosphere movies next. Again, we just saw a recent uptick in the solar wind density in the last 12 hours and a downtick in the speed. In the last half hour, the speed has started to pop back up again. Anyway, here's the density movie. This is 4 hours of data. We try to archive this daily. So if you new viewers want to see what was happening a year ago, just go to youtube.com/smashomash. It's there. Anyway, there are those striations in density. You see the lower density shown in white on this video. Here's the pressure. And this is looking pretty nominal for what you would expect with the recent changes in the solar wind speed and density. We should see a small spike right at the end of the movie here, as we did see some small uptick in the solar wind speed in the past hour. Not really a lot to see there. Let's see if it shows anything. Not really. And let's move on to ground geospace magnetic perturbations, causing all kinds of controversy. What's the Earth's magnetic field doing? Is it a conspiracy to hide the changes in the magnetic field? Anyway, there's 4 hours of data based on ground magnetic perturbations. This is changes in the Earth's B field. The B field being the field that goes through a magnet. Check out in-the-sky.org to figure out what's going on above your head. Here's what's going on above mine. Just put your location in, and you'll see that, oh man, Mercury just rose. Where will you be when Deneb sets? What the heck is going on? The one thing shrinks and the other thing grows. All right, anyway, in-the-sky.org. Here's another .org. It's smashomash.org. We've given it a little remake here. But the main point here is that if you want to tell people what our mission is so they support the channel, it's smashomash.com/forum/mission. We put it up easy so you could just tell people what it is. Anyway, the mission is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics. As astrophysics gets rewritten, we're trying to keep our viewers on top of it. Also, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects, to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including but not limited to the sciences that you see on the screen, to assist mankind in advancing the study of predictive phenomenon, basically to adapt no matter what the adversity is. As there are no problems that can't be fixed, folks. It may seem impossible, although Mr. Spock from Star Trek will tell you that nothing's impossible. It's just that some things are highly improbable. Lastly, the mission ends with not being ossified in our beliefs. Because if you are, you're not doing science. However, part of the mission is to treat those who are ossified in their beliefs with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion, as sometimes it takes a while for people's brains to catch up. Now, if you want to support the mission, please like and share the YouTube videos. Press subscribe, press the notification bell so that you see when we do things like go live, as sometimes it is seat of the pants. Now, you're probably seeing ads before, after, and during our videos. That's because you're probably thinking YouTube pays us to make these, but that's not correct. YouTube pays us exactly nothing. 100% of zero. $0 makes 0 cents. Since Google is a scam and not a verb, and they've been trying to ruin YouTube since 1 year after it went into existence. Now, if you want to support the channel, please do so on Patreon. And thanks to our latest patron, we are now back to 10. We appreciate your generous donation. We only have one tier right now. However, we recommend joining at a $10 level, despite the tier only being $1, because there are changes coming. And we do often release information on here hours or even days before the general public gets to see it. Now, we've only got to replace another $3,300 a month before we can go full-time on this channel and spend about 10 hours a day making cosmology videos and just constantly doing this instead of a, quote, real job, end quote. Another way to support the channel is via buying CBDs via the Spaced Out campaign, via Hemp Lucid. Just click the links below the video for the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, specifically formulated for our spaced out viewers. Looks like we have more sales going on the Kalki products. Those are the certified THC products specifically designed for athletes. Also, lip balm, waxes, gummies, body butter, etc. HempLucid.com Spaced Out campaign to support the channel if you are in the market for CBDs. Let's go back to space! Goes X-ray flux is totally flatlined. We have not seen a B-class flare since July 7th. So over a month without a B-class flare, folks. KP index is pegged at 1 for the past 9 hours. Goes electron flux, seeing a little dip here. This is what I like to call proton light. That's due to the slight increase in the solar wind density. Here are the auroras, looking pretty weak on both sides. No surprises there. Next, we'll do the ionosphere movie. And welcome Howard, Mary Wright, Mr. Keebler, Eden will do, Smasho staff, Thanks everybody for leaving comments. Here's the ionosphere movie. This is the last 6 hours. And we see some pretty serious anomalies going on here in South America. And before I forget, South America, you are on watch for a large earthquake. You've got all of the signs. We're going to get into it in a minute. Let's look at the last image here. There's the latest. Nighttime side is very discharged. Daytime side is looking nominal. GOES magnetometer showing continued spikes here, as we haven't seen smooth times on the GOES magnetometer for a solid 10 days. Here's the Gong 2 information. We do see some activity right here. Not sure if that's died down. I'm going to look at the last frame in a minute after I let this play once more. This is covering from August 8th through the current time, and the data is 1 hour and 23 minutes old. So there is some activity happening there. However, it looks like it may have died down again. Not exactly sure on that, but we're not expecting to see really severe spikes in the GOES magnetometer over the next few days. It looks like pretty smooth sailing, as there's only one main field out there, and that's the South Pole associated portion of the current sheet, which is shown in red on this image. Follow us on social media if you like. Places like facebook.com/smashomash. If you enjoy the music that we regularly play on the channel, check out soundclick.com/goldencatproductions. Again, that's soundclick.com/goldencatproductions. All original. This is all the more highly produced stuff. There's also a SoundCloud page, also linked in the description. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/smashomash. Highly recommend you check out Side View Sunrise as a hashtag. You know how to follow a hashtag? You just click the hashtag, and then you click follow. That's all. And you'll see all of my Side View Sunrise images, such as...
There's people's concerns that...
Well, that was yesterday. Anyway, also on Twitter, twitter.com/smashomash. Share our stuff there if you have friends who only use Twitter, for instance. Although we won't interact, it's only there for your convenience and for business purposes. Also on Gab, we are on Gab, gab.com/smashomash. We brand everything so that everybody knows what they're looking at. And on Minds, minds.com/smashomash, the future of social media. It's open source. It's not going to censor you. It's not going to shadow ban you. You'll get all of your grassroots views. Help us reach 500,000 views, as we're nearly at 475,000, despite only having 700 subscribers. Now, South America is on watch for a large earthquake. We're going to explain why, and it's because of extremely deep quakes all over the place. 4.4 in the Kuril Islands. This one is about exactly 24 hours ago. That one located south of Kamchatka. Here's a 4.5 at Colombia. That one in northern South America is at depth 155 kilometers. Shout out Colombians. If you're viewing from Colombia, please leave a comment, and please be on watch for earthquakes. 4.6 in China. And scrolling up the list, we see here's an Argentinian quake at 171 kilometers. Now, they get deeper than that as we continue up the list. Here's a 4.5 at the south of the Fiji Islands. That one's at 533 kilometers depth. If that happened at the surface, that would be about a 6 magnitude quake, folks. And we just updated. Let's continue on the list here. Palau, seeing a 5.0. That one is east of the Philippines. Here's a very deep quake, nearly 600 kilometers at 587 kilometers depth here in Argentina, 4.9 magnitude. Heads up for a larger quake there. There is a low pressure system looking real odd off the coast. We'll cover it in a minute. 4.7 in New Zealand. That one looks like it's actually in the middle of the islands. Let's check out the location of that. Please leave a comment, New Zealanders, if you felt that quake. There's a location of that. Looks like it's near Brightwater. And I know next to nothing about the geography of New Zealand, so let's move on. All right. Also, we see 4.8 at Indonesia, 4.6 at Bolivia, 4.0 at Argentina. Again, we see deep quakes and shallow quakes there. Please have an earthquake plan if you're in an earthquake-prone area. If you're going to evacuate the building you're in, go outside and look up. Figure out what may be falling on your head. Just the idea of expecting a quake is more preparation than not having any idea, right? Here's a 4.8 at China, a 4.7 at Chile. That one also at depth again. Shout out South America. The earthquake watch is there. Last quake on this list is a 4.9 at Indonesia. Now let's look at the pressure map as we see a quite anomalous looking low pressure system right here off the coast of South America there, off of Chile. And that is not good news for that area, as deep quakes and anomalous low pressure systems portend larger earthquakes at the surface. I'm going to let this play about 24 hours here. This is, I believe this is the GFS model. And that low pressure system is, so far it's hovering out there in the ocean. So it's looking pretty anomalous, folks. Anyway, that's my official forecast there, is that there's going to be a large quake in Western South America, namely southwestern South America. And let's move on to the volcano rundown. Mount Abico producing a 10,000-foot ash plume. Mount Aso, volcanic cloud unknown, possible activity. Sanjiang Api, 10,000-foot plume there. Dukono, 7,000-foot plume there and explosive activity. Popocatépetl chilled out and dissipated. Fuego, discrete emissions. Sangay, volcanic emissions moving west. Revenador, discrete emissions. Sabancaya, exploding, producing a 24,000-foot ash plume. And La Réunion, Piton de la Fournaise, is back on the list with its fourth eruption in 2019, started yesterday afternoon. A seismic crisis was involved. From 1620, volcanic tremor started, indicating magma having arrived at the surface or very close to it. Oh, there's a typo. The eruption could not initially be observed directly due to bad weather conditions, so keep an eye on Piton de la Fournaise throughout the day. It's probably going to explode. Here's a null school situation, looking at the Earth jet streams. Shout out to David Devine, who was talking about a 3,000-mile wide one in the southern hemisphere, which I believe is this one, and this is associated with disturbance in the upper atmosphere. Let's look at 10 hectopascals real quick. There's the 10 hectopascals view. There you see the Antarctican view. And there's the North Pole view. If you weren't aware of these massive rotations, folks, there is a Thunderbolts Project video about it. Go check that out. Thunderbolts Project on YouTube. Great video about this. Anyway, there's the northern jet stream, still largely being governed by convective forces. I would call it meridional flow, but there's not enough jet streamish flow to even call it a flow. It's almost entirely governed by convective forces. And where there is jet stream, sometimes it's even going the wrong direction. So there's the jet stream view. Let's continue on as cold air gets injected above my head, and for that, we thank you. Although we're not going to be thanking the cold air for an early winter for a third year in a row. Now, here's the AccuWeather Doppler, and man, there's a heavy line of thunderstorms here. Talking central Illinois, northern Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, even the Dakotas. And let's see what's going on in the water vapor. We'll show you the full size animation as well as the zoom in on that insane convergence. Speed this up. For you new viewers out there, you want to use a water vapor map when you can't tell based on the Doppler radar what the weather will do. Water vapor map sees water that has not yet condensed onto a cloud. So it's better than the visible satellite in that respect. Do keep in mind that it shows you different layers overlapping each other, so sometimes it does show some oddities where you're like, how can it be wet and dry in the same place? Well, it's because sometimes systems overlap each other and you've got hot air and cold air on top of each other, wet air and dry air on top of each other. And let's look at this giant Earth spot here moving over Iowa. Shout out Iowan viewers. We are hoping that your crops are growing. At least this one's moving. It looks like it's making a slight turn to the east here, picking a more easterly path as opposed to a northeasterly path. These areas here, there's going to be some major sudden storms and stuff just kicking off out of nowhere. So if you're in those areas, check it out. And know the distinction between your ass and a hole in the ground. This vulgarity-free section brought to you by our patrons. Are you ready for the global recession? Have you been following our videos where we talked about how food prices are going to rise since February, when record snow fell for a second year in the Northern Hemisphere? Are you ready for increased inflation all around the world, where your dollars will be worth less money than they used to be because of central banks printing money out of thin air, doing things like quantitative easing, increasing the money supply and decreasing your purchasing power? Are you familiar with things like precious metals and even cryptocurrencies, which are much better for your health than many actual government currencies, fiat money? Let's look at the Bitcoin quote here on Coinbase real quick, as it's back down to 11,366. Looks like we see some support levels forming here. And I want to also look at Ethereum, as I don't own any Bitcoin. I only own Ethereum, because I consider this the silver of cryptocurrency. It looks like a lot of upside potential there in Ethereum. If you're planning on buying a giant block of it today, please email me at smashomash@gmail.com. As the volume data on this stuff often is very deceptive. We see oil dropping in price still. Oil at very low levels. If you look at what happened to oil in the last financial crisis, when the bubble continued to get inflated in the U.S. economy, it was all the way up to, $140 a barrel, which, believe it or not, is actually even too high for Russia. Let's also look at gold and silver while we're here. We don't cover this every day, but some days we do, and man, oh man, up to $16.97. Jeez. Our regular viewers will remember us telling you to buy it at $14 an ounce. And if you profited massively from that, sign up for Patreon for a whole year and share some of your profits with us to help keep our channel afloat. And there's gold, very close to its multi-year highs here. Again, keep in mind, back during the financial crisis, it was much higher than this at $16.31 an ounce, $1,631 an ounce. U.S. Treasury yields fall below 1.7% as there has been an uptick in bond purchasing. Folks, no surprise, as inflation is slated to hit the U.S. So buy the stuff you want to buy, because your purchasing power is going to be reduced, especially the purchasing power measured in U.S. dollars. All currencies are going to experience inflation, And if you weren't aware, tariffs are stupid. Have you been having a problem with governments? Now, there's a lot of people out there wondering why kids that listened to punk rock music in the late 80s and early 90s used to be left-wing, and now we're considered right-wing extremists because we want the government to be smaller. Well, guess why that is, folks? It's because we don't like when the government does things. The government is a giant bloated mess that can't get out of its own way. So when the government was trying to censor people in the late 80s and early 90s, we were telling the government to shut its face. And now that the government keeps growing into a bloated, massive amoeba of doom and destruction and annoyances and graft and corruption and cronyism and other nonsense, well, we want the government to be smaller. And that's the main, my main political arguments, folks, are economic in nature. Now, if you've been having a problem with the government, check out ij.org, the Institute for Justice. Just click Report Abuse and fill out their form and explain how a government, whether it's a local code enforcement scum-sucking bottom feeder measuring your grass and threatening to fine you over it, or if it's, I don't know, Russian collusion, whatever it is. Anyway, when you click on that, you get to this where it says, is your potential case against a government body or agency? And then if you say yes, you just fill out this form, and then they'll get back to you, and they might even represent you pro bono. And thanks for tuning into the Smash stream, folks. It's not quite over yet, but we got a bonus section. And I'm going to let you stare at a star field for a minute while I go through the comments. By the way, that's Deneb in the center there, the brightest star you see. And Deneb, the tail of the swan in the constellation Cygnus, just happens to be the brightest single object visible to the human eye alone. Edenal dew indicating that it's very cold in Australia. No surprise there, as we look at the jet stream every day and go, wow. Pulling Antarctic air straight out of Antarctica and depositing it on top of your head. Again, thanks to our latest patron. And we are getting to the bonus section in one moment, so just bear with us, folks. All right, so there's a new trail opening up today. As there's a bridge linking the trail from Cementon through Jim Thorpe. It's opening today. It's the Delaware and Lehigh Trail. It's totally awesome. I'll leave links in the description after we're done with the video. For you folks who are thinking about going on vacation to Pennsylvania, you want to do a fairly easy bike ride that's quite long and quite flat. These type of trails here are fantastic. There's a system that goes all the way down to Levittown, but right now we're talking about this system right here, which is now complete. You can ride all the way from Cementon to Jim Thorpe, nonstop, no roads, through all of these spots. It is amazing. I haven't done it yet, but one of these days I'm going to take my single speed bike out and I'm going to go hit this thing up. It's probably like about 0.5% grade uphill the whole way and 0.5% grade downhill the whole way. Sounds like an amazing, easy bike ride. Delaware and Lehigh National Trail Corridor, getting better by the day. Let's give you one more view of the sun and then exit stage east. We're going to do the 335 angstroms view, as I saw some anomalies on this earlier. Not sure why. As data vanishes before your very eyes. Looks like it's getting obscured by something, folks, and I have no idea what it is. Figure that one out. Poof. Not sure on that one. That is a mystery to me. Let's go to 94 angstroms. Close this thing out, as it is about time to go do a lot more things, such as protect the food supply chain for the entire eastern portion of the North American continent. If you're wondering what I do after I leave these videos, what I do is I operate part of the administrative department for my laboratory testing organization, where I'm the field management. I've got to go out and visit clients and get their samples and bring them back to the microbiome lab and to the chemistry lab. Anyway, we got a great sprite right in the middle of the sun here. I'm going to see if I can capture that and use it as the thumbnail. So thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We are out of here. It's about that time. Remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.